Sorry about that, everyone. I'm only able to record in increments of 15 minutes via this particular software, so just bear with me. Quick summation here. We simply used step one of the improving academic tone formula, used a semicolon here in the sentence to fuse two smaller sentences into a more complex sentence structure. Because the before and after of the semicolon are both complete sentences with a complete thought, a subject, and a predicate. So it's easy to put the semicolon there to glue them together. So Kathy Engelbert assumed the role of the Women's National Basketball Association. This first portion here, we changed it from the original. Instead of became commissioner, we upgraded the verbiage here through step two of this formula, upgrading primary verbs to more research-centric or academically robust verbs. We changed it to assumed the role instead of became the commissioner. So we already did that here in 2019. So after the semicolon, we want to make this grammatically correct, right? So we're going to lowercase the P here because we're in the same sentence, right? No need to capitalize. This phrase here is what's referred to as an introductory phrase. So any dependent clause, not a complete thought, that you are including at the onset of a sentence, you always want to set it off with a comma. So prior to 2019, comma, Engelbert had already stacked up. Let's look at this particular portion of this excerpt here, had already stacked up. Your initial inclination should be that we're using verbiage that's very conversational. It's indicative of writing as if you were speaking aloud. So instead of had already stacked up, what's the best way to upgrade the academic tone here following step two? Instead of had already stacked up, there's a simple way to eliminate these simple words with a more impressive upgraded primary verb, amassed. Engelbert amassed an array of accomplishments and built a successful career. Let's hone in on this here. We're specifically looking, again, step two, upgrading verbs here to more academically robust and research-centric verbs. Built. Nothing really wrong with this, but if you are drafting content for the purposes of publication and for the purposes of bolstering your credibility as the autonomy, the ultimate credibility on your research topic, you want to shy away from these conversational types of words. You want to show that you have a mastery of the language and translating your ideas to get your points across, right? So instead of built, what other verb can we use? So I would say an array of accomplishments and exhibited a successful. I had already changed this. This was an impressive. I changed this because impressive lends towards a bias in the content. You always want to stick towards descriptors that are objective in nature, that do not lend to any kind of bias, do not invoke any of your personal attitudes, opinions, subjective experience, etc. There's always room for that when you invoke directly quoted material. But when you're paraphrasing, you do not want to include any of that. So I somewhat diluted that to a more objective term from impressive to successful career in the corporate sector of CEO as Deloitte accounting firm. So what's next? Let's look at the second part of step two, add additional details as much as possible or context. So immediately, this first part is pretty self-explanatory. Amassed an array, that should be of, I'm working without my glasses, bear with me. Engelbert amassed an array of accomplishments. Well, what type of accomplishments? I'm going to put a placeholder here, and this is where you would be more specific. You would add the additional details as much as possible or context to increase the understanding of that idea here and exhibited a successful career. So let's look at step 3, attribute or cite with a page or paragraph number when required. So let's just do a citation on this one, a normal citation that most of you are familiar with. So author, year, page. And you may ask yourself, why are we including the page number? That's because anytime you present closely associated source material, including numerical data, units of time, age, etc., you have to include a page or a paragraph number in order to avoid charges of plagiarism. If, for instance, you're working with an online source that doesn't necessarily have a page number, you would follow the same format, author, year, paragraph, and that would be the same as including the page number here. So let's look at this. From beginning to end, I'm going to paste the original version here. Original, Cathy Engelbert became the commissioner of the Women's National Basketball Association in 2019. Prior to 2019, Engelbert had already stacked up an array of accomplishments and built an impressive career in the corporate sector as the CEO of Deloitte accounting firm. Our improved version, using the formula for improving academic tone, reads as follows. Cathy Engelbert assumed the role of commissioner of the Women's National Basketball Association, WNBA, in 2019. Prior to 2019, Engelbert amassed an array of blank accomplishments and exhibited a successful career in the corporate sector as CEO of Deloitte accounting firm, author, year, page number. Do you see how following those simple 3 steps has completely transformed and upgraded that excerpt? Smaller sentences, added extensive credibility to your content, added substantive source material to substantiate your claims. It has everything you need in it, extra descriptors, upgraded verbs. This is the formula you want to follow. Be sure to look at your diagnostic writing packet and see how I've translated your own sentences into the same style. This is just a random one I grabbed for the purposes of making this video. This formula will almost always promise that you've got everything you need if you follow every step. And it's easy to remember. It's 3 steps. This is the piece de resistance, in other words. Always remember this. Remember the 3 steps. It'll help you with any writing in your future. So what I will do moving forward, I will publish more videos with more examples of how to translate this type of content into the standard that's required via this particular formula, just so you can see various examples. For now, let's move to the IPE 520 list of prohibited items and important elements. This is extremely important because it's going to include all of the non-negotiables, all of the items that are very important to constantly keep it top of mind as you're drafting your content. So I'm going to pause this and then switch my screen and show you the document so we can go through it together. All right, let's get started on this list. First of all, do not use conversational phrases or idioms in any kind of way, trite phrases. So this includes frankly, at any rate, as a matter of fact, at the end of the day, kind of, sort of, obviously, when it comes to, in conclusion, lastly, whatever, etc. The goal is to just always be assertive in the claims you're making. Most of the time, incoming graduate writers fall susceptible to using lastly or in summary, in conclusion. Remember, when you're writing these types of complex documents at this level, your conclusion is going to be your conclusion by virtue of being your conclusion. In other words, the content that's associated with your conclusion section is going to be your conclusion, and the reader will pick up on that. So you don't need to provide redundant information or that kind of trite concluding phrase. Along a similar vein, do not include conversational words, whack, stupid, dumb. Of course, it seems obvious, but you'd be surprised the rate at which I see these types of words in content. The bigger offender is what I refer to as waste words. These, simply put, are words that have no substance. They are indicative of writing as if you're speaking aloud. And so you see these types of words, examples being just, any version of get, got, gotten, getting, any variant of got. You really believe a lot stuff, even, really, virtually, literally, so, seems, etc. All of these words, and let me add another one in here, probably. I've seen probably a lot. The goal is that you are assertive in the claims you make. You are an objective, data-driven researcher. What you are presenting is data-driven, factual, objective truth. So you don't need any words that water down your content, such as seems or probably. The rest of these are, simply put, just spoken word variants. So got, getting, just, really, even, a lot, stuff, literally, virtually. Avoid them at all costs. Follow the formula for improving your academic tone, you will immediately replace these words with more academic versions. So keep that in mind. This is huge. No personal pronouns or word associations, i.e. me, you, us, we, our, I, your, my, mine, etc. Remember, you as a researcher are presenting and orchestrating source material to substantiate claims you are making. You are extracting yourself 150% from the content of your research. Your attitudes, biases, personal opinions, subjective experience, all of that should be extracted from your content. And so you will never refer to the audience as you. You will never interact with the audience or ask a question or make a demand, for instance, or make a command. Instead, you stay completely objective in third person tense, and you never stray from that. However, if you start to include directly quoted material, you can use these types of personal pronouns if it's in directly quoted material, but in your own summation or analysis of content, you will never use personal pronouns and you'll stay in strict objective third person tense. Strive to utilize stronger, more impactful words, vocabulary, and transitions. The first part of this is hand in hand with the formula for improving the academic tone of your writing. Transitions is important. A lot of times, again, indicative of writing as if you're speaking aloud, I see incoming graduate students write, another example of, also this example, etc. Start to look at more academic and credible transitions. Again, the best way to do this is to refer to sample lit reviews, theses, dissertations, and already published online scholarly articles, and mimic the style of the transitions that are being used. Oftentimes, attributions or referring to other source materials or authors and the way they're explaining certain aspects of a phenomenon is a way to effectively transition instead of just referring or defaulting to another example of blank is blank. So that's something else to be on the lookout for. Overall document formatting is extremely important. Make sure when you're submitting your document, your cover page is in the right format, your references page is in the right format with hanging indents, organized by alpha, by author name. Make sure that you are correctly citing each reference citation. So first identifying what type of source that is, then referring to the APA manual and looking at the template for exactly how to cite that source. There's no gray area with reference citations and APA document formatting. You have to refer to the resources you have, which is APA, to make sure your content is congruent. No profanities, illicit, demeaning, or offensive material. Of course, that goes without saying, and I will continue in a third video momentarily.